Ask you a question this morning. How many of you have to struggle to do wrong? Anyone? Raise your hand. Go ahead and do it. It's just like it's hard for you. Like, Emma, put your hand down. That is my daughter. I will call you out, all right? Listen, seriously, how many of us, you'll wake up in the morning and you go, you know what? It's just going to be so hard to sin today. I really am going to have to work hard at this. How many of you wake up in the morning and go, man, it's just like, I just hope I can do something that's going to mess up my life today. That's just so difficult for me to do that I'm just going to work really hard at it. My guess is that, and if you're being honest with ourselves, Emma, then one of the things that we know is that it is not difficult to do wrong. It's not hard. We don't struggle with it. It's not a challenge for most of us. What is challenging, what we do sometimes struggle with, is what the Bible calls righteousness. Doing the things that God wants, doing the things that God designed us to do. And there are a few reasons for this. One of those reasons is that we live in a fallen world that does everything it can to try to pull us away from God. I mean, think about what the messages that our world gives us. That if you want to have value, if you want to have joy, if you want a good life, then you have to be successful, or you have to be wealthy, or you have to be good looking, or you have to have the latest and greatest, whatever the latest and greatest is. And we get those messages every day that maybe your value is in how much fun or how good you feel, or everything from that to our world. And maybe it wouldn't say it this way, but it's going to sound something like God doesn't work for you today. God doesn't work in this world today. I mean, the things of God are 2,000 years old. How in the world could they work today in our world? And so why would you think that you have to follow what God says? And so we have this world that's trying to pull us away from God. But even if our world wasn't doing that, the Bible tells us that we have this thing, what it calls our flesh. And that's not just our physical skin, but it is included. And that's the part of us that says, I'm going to put myself first, even if putting myself first isn't God's best. It's the part of us that says, I just have to follow my feelings. I just have to do what seems right to me. I just have to sort of fit in. I just have to make sure that I get mine, and regardless of what anyone else does, or even regardless of what God says for us to do. And it's that part of us that causes us to ignore God because we think, right? And listen, you may say, I don't think this, but I think at one point we all do. We think we know better than God. We think we know better than what God says. I mean, we know what He says, we know what He wants, but somehow I think I know better. And so because of that, because of our flesh, because of this world, and because it's just sometimes hard to follow Jesus, there's this thing that tends to happen in the church world, and among Christians. And if you're not a Christian, if you're new to the church today, listen, we're glad that you're here. But for most of us, for many of us, that church is a part of our lives, sometimes because we know we don't do the things we're supposed to do. Sometimes we know because it's easy for us to do what's wrong. Sometimes because we do the same dumb thing over and over and over again. We come here on Sunday, and we don't want to let anyone know that. We come here on Sunday, and we put on our Sunday faces, don't we? Hey, how's it going? Everything's great. Hey, how's it going? Man, it's all good. And we sort of present ourselves as just life is fine, just the way it is, and we're just making our way through it. And it tends to, if we're not careful, isolate us. It tends to make church this thing that we do when we come together and we do church because that's what we're supposed to do, but we don't really take the time to let people know who we really are. And I'm here to tell you today that I think one of the greatest tricks that our enemy has for us, one of his most powerful tools that he has for us, is to convince us that you are all alone in your journey with Jesus. That you can't let people know who you really are, that you can't rely on people, you can't depend on people, that you just have to be you and God on your own, and that's what really matters. But I'm here to tell you today that God has something better for you. He has something better for you than just you walking in your faith journey alone. Because you see, the Bible tells us that God created us to help each other follow Him. I want to look at a passage in the book of Hebrews here, and here's what it says. It says this: "Take care, brothers, lest there be in any of you an evil, unbelieving heart, leading you, leading you, encouraging you, pushing you to fall away from the living God." He's saying, he's reminding us that there are things that are evil, that unbelieving, that are encouraging us, challenging us, making it easy for us to fall away from God. But then he says this: "But exhort one another every day, as long as it is called today, that none of you may be hardened by the deceitfulness of sin." I love that word, exhort, right there. It's not a word that we necessarily use every day. In fact, some of your translations may have even translated it something like encouragement, and encouragement's a part of it, but it's so much deeper, it's so much more profound than that. The Greek word that we translate exhort really comes from another word that means to beg or to plead. It's the idea of someone looking another person in the eyes and saying, you need to listen to me. Pay attention to me. I'm telling you something that's important for your life. Don't ignore me. Don't miss out. Don't skip over this. I'm exhorting you. I'm challenging you. I'm encouraging you. It really is. It's a word that's used to describe what a coach does when they look at someone and say, "I believe in you, and I can tell you how to be better, and I'm encouraging you, and I'm with you, and I'll even hold you accountable, and I'll even hold you up when necessary." And that's that word that it means there. And so what he's saying to us, guys, is he's saying, listen, I want you to exhort one another. If you spend much time with me, I hope there are some things that you'll notice that I love in my life. Like I genuinely love God. I really do. Faith is a part of who I am. Can't imagine my life without God, and I am blown away every day that He lets me be His son. I love my family. I love my friends. I love pastoring this church, and I love CrossFit. All right? And I've drank the Kool-Aid, and you're going, wow, all those other things are really spiritual. Well, just hang on. I'm going to make it spiritual today. Right? And let me so listen, I go 5 or 6 times a week. I enjoy working out. I enjoy the environment. I enjoy the challenge. And one of the things I like about CrossFit is most of the time we do different things every day, right? It's varied, so I don't have to do the same thing. I get bored real easy, and so I like it. And but there are a few workouts that we do that we repeat every so often, just to sort of see how you're doing. Are you getting stronger? Are you getting faster? Are you getting better? And one of those things is called the Morison. And if you've done it, you know this is no fun, but it's awesome, right? And the Morison begins with a ball like this, and you have to squat down. I'm in jeans, so we'll see how this goes. And you throw that thing 10 feet up in the air at a target 50 times. All right? So you do that 50 times. Then you walk up to your box, watch, and you jump on it. See, some of y'all were going, he's either going to fall on his face, and that's a win, or he's going to make it, right? And you do that 50 times. And then you take one of these little ugly things called a kettlebell, and you swing that up in the air 50 times to eye level. And you think you're done after that. But then you do those same 3 movements 40 times each. And then when you're done with that and you're about to die, you do it 30 times each. And then when you're done and your soul has left your body, you do it 20 more times. And then when you're finished with that, if you're lucky, you'll get the last 10 rounds of each of these. And you got to do it in 35 minutes, which seems like a long time, but it's really not. And the prescribed weights for this is here. And this, look, as I knew, somebody said, why don't you get a lighter weight? Because I knew some of y'all would come and check. So this is a 20-pound ball. Like, that's what a guy's supposed to do. And a 24-inch box and a 53-pound kettlebell. And the first time I did it, I was not able to even use those weights. So the first time I did this, I used a 14-pound, a 35-pound, and I put this on its side, and it's 18 inches. And I couldn't finish in 35 minutes. I got the 50 and the 40 and the 30 done, and then I remember someone picking me up off the floor at some point. I don't really know what happened from there, but that's how far I got the first time. So 3 or 4 months later, we did this again, and I'd gotten better and stronger and a little bit more in shape. So I said, you know what? I'm going to try it with this weight and this height. I'm going to do it, and my goal was to see if I could just get as far as I did the first time, right? Heavier weight, so that's like a win, right? That means I've improved. And so I start doing, I get all the calculations in my head and like, okay, I need to be at this point by this much time and all that stuff. And so I was going through the workout and I'm somewhere in I think it was in the 30s. And I'm looking at the clock going, I'm going to do this. May not do it, I'll be close, but I think I can finish this. And so I'm pacing myself, and then I hear this voice. It's not in my head. At first I thought it might have been, but it was like a real human voice. It was one of my coaches from across the gym saying, Stephen, what are you doing? You can finish this. Quit breathing. That's great advice, isn't it? Right? Quit stopping. Quit taking breaks. Pick it up. Throw it. Jump on it. Get going. You can do this. And for the rest of the time, she would sit there and just in love, but it was like with firm love, right? You can do it. Pick it up. I remember at one time I said, I can't. And I thought she threw a ball at me. I don't know what happened. She's like, don't say that. Get going. And while she's doing that, I look over at the other coach, and he brings the box over to him a little bit. I'm like, dude, why are you moving my box? Don't move my box. It's right there. And I go up, and it's my turn to jump, and I jump, and then as I step down, he jumps on the box. And then as he steps down, he says, jump. And so we go back and forth, and we jump, and then he takes one of these balls, and he's next to me, and he throws it up once, and I throw it up once, and we go back and forth, and the whole time he's like, you got this. You got this. And with 30 seconds left, I finished the Morison at the RX weight. And I celebrate like I had just won a gold medal in the Olympics. I'm not saying I did. I may have even done a little dance. And you aren't going to see that today, all right? But I'm telling you, it was one of those moments where I felt like, my goodness, I have just done what I thought was impossible. The truth was I had given up. The truth is, I thought, you know what, I'm a little bit better, so okay, that's a victory. The truth is, many of you, if you'd been there, you'd have celebrated with me just getting as far as I did the first time with a heavier weight. The truth is, it was all good. I was okay. Until two people say, Stephen, you can do better. You can do better, and I'll yell at you until you do better. You can do better, and I'll do it with you to prove that you can do better. You can do better because I believe in you, and because I want the best for you, and because I know you can. Now pick up the ball, make the jump, swing the stupid kettlebell, and keep going. That is what it means to exhort one another. That's what it means when we say that we look at each other and say that I love you enough to believe in you. I love you enough to challenge you. I love you enough to encourage you. I love you enough to know that you can do more than you could ever think possible on your own. And it's both sides, right? It's the you can do it, and I'm going to hold you accountable. I'm not going to let you settle. I'm not going to let you stop. I'm not going to let you slow down. But it's also the side that says, I'll do this with you. I'll do it with you. And when those two things come together, when those two truths come together, that I believe you can do it, and I'm gonna keep yelling at you until you do, and that I'm willing to do it with you, when that comes together, that's what the writer of Hebrews is telling us to do. But exhort, challenge, encourage, hold up one another every day. You know, Paul, when he's writing to Timothy in 1 Timothy, he says, Timothy, I want you to know that physical training has value. He says it's a good thing. I think he's saying, Timothy, get up off the couch and do something. Move. It's important. Physical training has value. But he says, but training in godliness lasts for all of eternity. And if I need someone to challenge me to be physically my best, if I need someone to encourage me to be the best I can in my career and in my relationships and with my family and with all the things that are important, how much more do I need people in my life who will encourage me to be my best in my faith. Because you can be the strongest, fastest, fittest person. You can achieve the pinnacle of your career. You can have all these great relationships here on earth. But if you do not have a strong relationship with Jesus, none of it matters. And so the writer of Hebrews is saying, guys, I want you to exhort one another every day, as long as it is called today. And he tells us why. Because he says that none of you may be hardened by the deceitfulness of sin. He's saying, guys, there is sin all around you. There's sin in you. Sin is whenever I say I'm going to ignore God because I know better. It's not just like, God, I'm breaking some rule. No, it's us saying, God, I want to be my own God. I mean, think about if you know the story in the Garden of Eden when God puts Adam and Eve there. He says, you can have anything you want, but there's one rule. There's a tree in the center of it. That's my tree. Don't eat of that tree. It's a way of you showing that you know I'm the most important, that I am God. And then Satan comes up to Adam and Eve and says, you know why God doesn't want you to eat that fruit? Because he knows that if you eat that fruit, you're going to be like him. You'll get to be your own God. You won't have to listen to God. You won't have to do what God says. He's only given you one rule, but I mean, come on, that's like way too much. I mean, what does God expect you to do? Eat of all the fruit, but not that one tree? And Adam and Eve look at each other and they go, you know what, I want to be my own God. I want to be in charge of my life. I think I know better. And he's warning us that we need to exhort each other because there is this thing called sin, this lie we believe that I can be my own God, and it is deceitful. It promises something, doesn't it? It promises that you can have everything that you want to have. You can have the life that you've always wanted. You can have everything that's going to make you happy if you just ignore what God says. But it lies. Sin is deceitful, it says, promising one thing and delivering the other. What happened when Adam and Eve believed the lie that they could be their own God? They end up breaking their relationship with God and being separated from God. And he tells us that everything that's good comes from God. And so when we allow sin to deceive us and to break us and to pull us away from God, to deceive us, it takes us from everything that's good, because it takes us from the God who made you and loves you and only wants the best for you. But he says it's not just sin that's deceitful, it will lead to hardness. He's saying that it will lead us to the place where whenever the Bible talks about hardness, it talks about that place where we can't see the truth any longer. We can't see anything else. It's almost like, God's trying to get in, but our heart is too hard. There's a story where Moses goes to Pharaoh in the Old Testament. He says, Pharaoh, God's come to me and he said to me that I need to tell you to let his people go, let the Hebrew people go. And Pharaoh looks at Moses and says, Moses, I'm not going to let them go. They're making me a lot of money and rich and wealthy. Why would I let that group of people go? And it says that Pharaoh's heart was hard. He could not even see the truth. He could not even see the truth because he had ignored God. He had been deceived by sin so long that he couldn't imagine, he couldn't believe. He didn't want to believe that God may have had something better for him. And so what the writer of Hebrews is saying is, guys, you need to exhort, encourage, challenge, lift up, hold up one another every day as long as it is called today, because he does not want you to be hardened by the deceitfulness of sin. He wants something better for you. And the problem, the reason that we need other people in our life to do this is not because it's easy and not because we have time for this and not because everyone's going to tell us what we want to hear. The reason that we need it is the biggest liar to ourselves is ourselves. No one lies to you like you lie to you. Is that true? I mean, think about it for a moment. I don't believe that there's anyone that lies to you like you lie to yourself when you say things like, oh, I know better than God. I know what God says, but I know better. And we wouldn't say it that way because we're like good, we're good American Christians, right? So we can't say that out loud. But when our actions say that, it's like us saying it out loud. Like, I know what God wants, but I don't want to do it because I know better. And we lie to ourselves. We lie to ourselves when we say things like, this isn't hurting anyone. We lie to ourselves when we're saying it's no big deal. We lie to ourselves when we believe that we can be our own God. And before we know it, the deceitfulness of sin has made us hard and we can't see anything else. But when you have people in your life, listen, when you have people in your life who will exhort you and let you exhort them, it allows us to see the truth. How many of you can spot problems in other people's lives faster than you can spot them in your own? How many of you like doing it? Don't put your hand up, because I know, right? I mean, we love looking at other people and saying, hey, if they would just do this, if they would just live like this, if they would just make this change, if they would just choose differently, then their life would be better. And the truth is, you probably are right. But just don't let them come say that to you. Just don't let it say it to me, right? Like, I'll be happy to, I've told you before, if you want me to point out all your problems, after service, come right on up here. I'll do it in front of everybody if you want, because that's just the kind of servant that I am. No, we're not going to do that. But like, it's easy to do it in other people, but we don't like it in ourselves. And that's why he is telling us, you need this. You need people who love you enough to encourage you, to tell you the truth, to challenge you to be your best, to encourage you. Listen, to encourage you to follow God. I was thinking about like how much stuff I put between me and God, right? How much junk I put there, stuff I don't even see, and it's keeping me from God's best. And you know what you need? People in your life who say, get over the stupid box and get to God. You know what you need? You need people in your life who are close enough to see the lies of Satan, to see the sin, and maybe say, would you just throw it away instead of holding on to it? You need people in your life who will walk up to you and go, you can go higher than you ever thought you could do. You can go further, swing up, and get moving to God's best for your life. We need those kinds of people. And so the question I want you to ask yourself today, this isn't for you to ask for someone else. Don't nudge your husband or wife or friend sitting next to you. I want to ask you to ask yourself a question. Am I ready? Am I ready to receive exhortation? Am I ready for that? Or am I just happy with my sin? Am I just happy getting by? Can we just maybe for a moment acknowledge that for some of us we would much rather do what's easy? Which easy is following my own heart, doing what seems right to me, doing what's easy, rather than doing the difficult things which are following God. The problem is that easy destroys our life and difficult makes us stronger. And you can, guys, you can see that in other areas, can't you? No one gets in shape doing easy. No one does well in their career doing easy. No one has a great relationship with their husband or wife, with their children, by doing what's easy. It's not easy jumping and lifting and throwing this stuff, but it makes me healthier. And it's not easy spending time always just thinking about what's best for my wife and children, not just what's best for me, but it makes my marriage and my family stronger. And it's not easy trying to do the hard things to be the best I can as a pastor, as a leader of this church. It's not easy, but easy ruins your life. Difficult makes you strong. And there has never been someone who has achieved greatness, and however you want to define that, by doing the easy. There's never been anyone who has achieved greatness by taking the easy path. Nor did anyone ever achieve their greatness, their full potential, on their own. There's always someone who teaches us, and always someone who challenges us, and always someone who holds us accountable, and always someone who lifts us up. And that's why one of the most powerful lies that our enemy can tell you is that you're alone. Don't let people see the real you. Don't show weakness in your life. Don't let them see who you really are, because they might reject you. And that's why the writer of Hebrews says, exhort one another. Are you seeking exhortation in your life? Are you deliberately pursuing people who look at you and tell you the truth even when you don't want to hear the truth? Are you building relationships with others who will encourage you to be the best that you can be? You know what I think this takes? I think it takes three kinds of people. I think it takes people who are close enough to see, like the real you. The real you when you're not in church pretending to be more than you are. The kind of people who are close enough to see you when you mess up and know it when you walk into the room. The kind of people that are close enough to see you and know exactly what you're thinking, feeling, and going through without you having to say a word. But it means that you've got to let people into your life. It means you've got to let people, you've got to tell your stories, you've got to talk, you've got to share. You've got to open up so that people can be close enough to see you. It also means that we need to have people that are close enough to care, to get involved when I don't want it, to get involved when I want it, because they love me enough to hold me accountable and hold me up. And that means that we've got to be willing to let people talk to us and say things to us that are hard, right? That we don't want to hear, but they care enough to say it to us. And rather than being defensive or saying, oh, they're not fair, I'm not listening, maybe we need to stop and go, do I have people who tell me the truth in my life? It means that we need to have people who are close enough to encourage you that I believe in you and I'm in this with you. And I'm even willing to sacrifice to help you. Can I tell you, if you don't have people like that in your life, you're missing God's best for your faith. You're missing God's best for your relationship with Him. And in fact, if you don't have people that are exhorting you, you're easy prey for the enemy. And if you're not willing to exhort other people, you're enabling them to miss out on God's best. How many of you, and don't raise your hand on this one, but how many of you need that kind of exhortation in your life? How many of you need people who love you and believe in you and care about you and know you and spend time with you and love you and encourage and all of those kinds of things? How many of you need those kinds of people in your life? How many of you feel stuck in your spiritual walk? How many of you struggle with the same issues now that you did 10, 15, 20 years ago, and you're like, God, when is this ever going to change? How many of you walk into church every Sunday and you feel alone and broken and trying to figure out what in the world you're going to do to get through the next week? God has an answer for you. And it's not even a difficult answer. You see, He said the answer is this, that we exhort one another. And so here is my challenge for you this morning. Because I think if you'll do this and if you'll take this serious, it might just change your life. And it's two parts. Number one is that if you don't have a group that you're a part of in our church, find one and get involved in it. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying you're going to find one right away. I'm not saying it's, you may have to figure it out in the right time and the place and all that kind of stuff. But I'm telling you, if all you do is come here on Sunday morning and worship, that's awesome. And I am thankful that you're here. I pray that when you leave here, you leave encouraged. I pray that when you leave here, you feel like, you know what, I've been exhorted. I've been challenged to be my best. I've been lifted up to be my best. That's our goal. But if this is all, then you're missing what true exhortation is, when someone who knows you and sees you and loves you can look you in the eyes and say, stop it, change it, keep going, and I'm here for you. And I want to challenge you that if you're not involved in a group, and listen, we've got some amazing groups. It doesn't have to be one that's connected to Calvary, but it would be great if you would. I think you'd be blessed. But I want to challenge you that you find one of our groups where you can get together with a smaller group of people. Some of them meet at home, some of them meet at the church, some of them meet Sunday morning, some of them meet throughout the week. But that you'll get with some of our groups where you can study God's Word, where you can figure out how to apply it, and where you can have people that will exhort you. In our foyer, you walk out, go just right out these doors and go to the left. There are tables set up with all of our groups, and there's people there who are part of all of our groups. And I hope that you'll stop by, and not tomorrow, not next week or in a couple of weeks, not that you'll say, hey, I'll think about it in the future. No, I pray that this week you'll just stop by, talk to people, find a group to be part of. In your bulletin, as Phil mentioned, there's these green cards that if maybe you're just not sure which one, you can drop this in there or in a basket that's out there, and they'll be happy to help you find one. We'll call you and help you connect. But don't leave this place thinking you have to do and follow Jesus on your own. But the second part of this is that if you're part of a group, give your best to it. Because your group needs you and you need them. Move beyond the surface. Move beyond just, hey, everything's okay, let's read a Bible verse and then move on. No, decide that we want to be a group of people who exhort, who lift up, who build up, who bring out the best in each other. I am convinced that if we as a church would be passionate about exhorting one another, that every single one of us would find and discover that God has so much more for us than we ever imagined. And that maybe God can work in us and through us to be more and do more and live more for Him as we go throughout our week. So my challenge, find a group and give your best to them and watch God do something great in and through you.